The night was quiet, yet heavy with a strange kind of stillness. The wind outside brushed against the old curtains, making them dance softly against the window. The house stood in darkness, except for a single dim light glowing from the living room. Inside, Mira sat on the couch, lost in thoughts she couldn't escape from. It had been weeks since she felt truly peaceful. Something deep inside her heart told her that the man she once loved, her husband, Rohan, was hiding something from her. She tried to ignore the thought, to convince herself that she was just being paranoid. But the silence between them, the cold glances, and the late-night phone calls were too loud to ignore. She closed her eyes and took a deep breath, but her chest still felt heavy. "Why does it feel like he's not mine anymore?" she whispered to herself. The clock on the wall ticked slowly, each second echoing through the lonely house. Her daughter, Alia, had already gone to bed after asking her mother the same question she always did: "Mom, are you and Dad okay?" Mira had smiled and said yes, though her heart had said no. It was that night, that unforgettable night, when everything changed. Mira would often say later, "I still remember that night," because it was burned into her memory like a wound that never healed. The moment when truth tore apart her world. Around midnight, Rohan still hadn't come home. Mira sat near the window, waiting. His phone was switched off. She thought maybe he was busy with work, but deep down she knew the truth was darker. Her instinct screamed that something was wrong. When she finally heard the sound of his car pulling into the driveway, relief washed over her for a second, until she saw the nervous look on his face as he stepped out. He didn't look at her when he entered the house. His shirt was slightly crumpled, and there was a faint smell of perfume that wasn't hers. "Where were you, Rohan?" she asked softly. He froze for a second before replying, "Late meeting." "Don't start again, Mira." His voice was sharp, defensive. She wanted to believe him. She really did. But the lies were starting to show. Every time he spoke, his eyes avoided hers. Every time she touched him, he flinched like her touch burned. That night, Mira couldn't sleep. She kept thinking about the perfume, about the lipstick mark she thought she saw on his collar but told herself she imagined. But her heart kept whispering, "You're not imagining it." The next morning, she decided to call her sister, Priya, who lived across the city. Priya was always her comfort, her best friend. Whenever Mira felt lonely, Priya would listen. But lately, even Priya had been acting distant. Her calls went unanswered more often. Her tone felt cold, almost guilty. Mira didn't understand why. When Priya finally picked up the phone that morning, her voice sounded tired. "Hey Mira, is everything okay?" she asked. "I don't know," Mira said, her throat tightening. "Rohan has been acting strange. I think he's hiding something." There was a pause, too long a pause. "Don't think too much," Priya replied quickly. "Men get busy. He loves you." The call ended, but that pause haunted Mira more than the words. Days passed. Rohan came home later and later. He stopped eating dinner with them. Alia noticed it too, her once loving father now avoided even her. One evening, when Rohan didn't return until nearly 1 a.m., Alia, who was just 18, saw the worry on her mother's face and decided to follow him the next day. She told Mira she was visiting a friend, but in truth, she was watching her father. The day was bright and warm, but Alia's heart was cold. She followed his car quietly, keeping her distance. Her hands trembled on the steering wheel as she saw him pull into a small, private hotel on the edge of the city. Her breath caught. She waited for almost half an hour until she saw him step out of the car, and a woman followed behind him. Alia couldn't see clearly at first. She squinted, leaned forward, and froze. The woman was her aunt. Her mother's sister. Priya. For a moment, the world around her went silent. Her heartbeat pounded in her ears. She felt like screaming, like running to them, but she couldn't move. The betrayal hit her so hard it numbed her. Her father. Her aunt. The two people her mother trusted most. Together. Laughing. Walking hand in hand into a hotel. Alia drove back home in tears, her vision blurry, her heart shattered. She didn't know how to tell her mother. She didn't even know if she should. But as soon as she saw Mira sitting on the couch, looking worried and tired, something inside her broke. "Mom," she whispered, her voice trembling. Mira looked up, smiling weakly. "What happened, Alia?" Alia couldn't speak for a few seconds. Then she said, barely above a whisper, "It's Dad. I saw him, with Aunt Priya." Mira froze. The cup of tea in her hand slipped and shattered on the floor. For a long time, she didn't move or speak. Her eyes filled with tears that refused to fall. "No," she said softly, shaking her head. "You must be mistaken." But Alia's eyes told the truth. There was no mistake. That night, Mira didn't cry. She sat in silence, her hands trembling. The walls of her home, the place that once held laughter and love, now felt like a prison of lies. Her mind replayed every moment, Priya's distance, Rohan's coldness, the perfume smell. It all made sense now. She felt sick to her stomach. Alia sat beside her mother, holding her hand. "Mom, we can't let them get away with this," she said, her voice firm despite the tears. Mira didn't answer. She was lost in thought, between heartbreak and disbelief. Hours passed, and the night grew darker. Outside, thunder rolled across the sky. Rain began to fall, tapping softly against the windows like tears from heaven. Mira finally spoke, her voice almost broken. "I gave him everything. I gave her everything. And they gave me this." Alia wiped her mother's tears and whispered, "You have me, Mom. We'll get through this. Together." But inside, Alia's heart was burning, not just with pain, but with anger. A quiet, dangerous anger. She couldn't stop seeing the image of her father laughing with her aunt. The betrayal wasn't just against her mother. It was against her too. The next morning, Mira decided to confront the truth. She told Alia to stay home, but Alia refused. "I'm coming with you," she said firmly. Together, they drove to Priya's apartment. The air inside the car was tense and heavy. Mira's hands were cold on the steering wheel. When they arrived, Mira hesitated at the door. Her heart raced so fast she thought she might faint. She lifted her hand and knocked. No one answered at first. Then, slowly, the door opened. And there stood Priya, her face pale, her eyes wide with shock. "Mira," she whispered. Rohan's voice came from inside. "Who is it, baby?" Mira's world stopped. Her husband appeared behind Priya, his shirt half-buttoned, his expression turning from surprise to panic the moment he saw Mira and Alia standing there. For a few seconds, no one spoke. The silence was louder than any scream. Then Mira's voice came, shaking but full of fury. "How could you?" Priya looked down, unable to meet her sister's eyes. Rohan tried to speak, "Mira, it's not what it looks like." But Alia stepped forward, her face red with tears. "Don't you dare lie, Dad. I saw you." Rohan froze. He had no words left to hide behind. Tears finally escaped Mira's eyes, falling down her cheeks like broken glass. She turned and walked away, her body trembling. Alia followed her, looking back only once, long enough to see the shame on their faces. As they drove back home in silence, lightning flashed through the sky, lighting up their faces in the dark car. Mira's hands gripped the wheel, her heart broken but her mind beginning to change. Alia watched her mother quietly, knowing something inside her had shifted. That night, when they reached home, Mira sat in the same spot on the couch where everything had begun. The air was thick with silence. Then Alia spoke softly, "Mom, we can't let them destroy us. He betrayed you. She betrayed you. They both need to face what they've done. Mira looked at her daughter, her eyes hollow yet fierce. What do you mean? Alia leaned closer, her voice low and determined. I know how to make him pay. Mira's breath caught. There was something cold and certain in Alia's tone, something she had never heard before. For the first time, Mira saw not the child she raised, but a woman with fire in her heart. Outside, the storm raged louder, lightning flashing across the sky. Inside the house, silence filled with unspoken plans. And that's when Mira realized this was only the beginning. The next morning came quietly, with a pale sun hiding behind gray clouds. The air in the house felt colder than usual, as if the walls themselves had absorbed the pain from the night before. Mira sat at the dining table, staring at her untouched cup of tea. The spoon inside it had stopped moving long ago, and the steam had faded away. Across from her, Alia stood silently, watching her mother's trembling hands. There were no words left to say, only the heavy truth that had destroyed everything they once believed in. Mira's eyes were swollen from crying. She had spent the whole night awake, staring at the ceiling, her mind replaying that image, her husband standing beside her sister, both caught in betrayal. Every second of that memory burned her heart. The man who once promised to protect her had broken her completely. The sister who swore to stand by her had stabbed her in the back. When Alia walked into the room, Mira looked up slowly. I can't believe they did this to us, she whispered. Her voice cracked, almost breaking under the weight of her words. I can believe it, Alia replied, her tone quiet but steady. Because I saw it with my own eyes. There was anger in her voice, deep, sharp anger that didn't sound like her usual gentle tone. Mira looked at her daughter carefully. Alia's eyes were red, but there was something new inside them, determination. She wasn't just hurt, she was planning something. Alia, Mira said softly, what did you mean last night, when you said you know how to make him pay? Alia sat down beside her, folding her hands together. For a few seconds, she didn't answer. She was thinking carefully, her mind spinning between pain and purpose. Then she spoke. He took everything from us, Mom. Our peace. Our trust. Our family. He made you feel worthless, and he made a fool of me too. I can't forgive that. But I won't scream, and I won't cry anymore. I'll make him feel the same pain. Quietly. Mira frowned slightly, worried by her daughter's tone. What are you planning to do? Alia looked down, her lips pressed tight. I don't know yet, she said. But I'll find a way. For the rest of that day, they both stayed inside. Mira tried to distract herself by cleaning, cooking, doing anything that would keep her from thinking. But no matter what she did, the betrayal stayed in the back of her mind like a shadow that refused to fade. Every time she looked at the photo frame on the wall, the picture of her, Rohan, and Alia smiling together, she felt sick. The smiles looked fake now. Lies frozen in time. In the evening, Rohan called. Mira stared at the phone for a long time before answering. His voice came through the speaker, calm but full of guilt. Mira, please, let me explain. She said nothing. Mira, I made a mistake. I know you're hurt, but She hung up. Her hands were shaking, but her eyes were dry. The tears were gone. Now, there was only silence, the kind of silence that comes before a storm. Later that night, Alia came to her room. She had a notebook in her hand. Mom, she said quietly, I've been thinking all day. If we want to end this pain, we have to show the world who he really is. Mira looked confused. Show the world? Alia nodded. He cares about his image, his business, his respect. That's all he ever talks about. What will people think? What will society say? He's terrified of losing his reputation. So that's what we'll take away from him. Mira stared at her daughter. The soft-spoken girl she had raised was now speaking like a woman with a fire inside her. "Alia, revenge doesn't heal the heart," she said slowly. "It only burns what's left." "I know," Alia replied. "But he already burned everything." For a long time, Mira said nothing. She looked at her daughter, at her trembling hands, at the pain hiding behind her strong voice, and she realized that Alia wasn't just doing this for her. She was doing it because she, too, had been broken. The next few days passed quietly, but the silence wasn't peaceful. Rohan called again and again, but Mira never answered. Priya tried calling too, leaving messages filled with fake guilt and apologies, but Mira deleted them without listening. Then, one evening, Alia came home with something in her hands, a small USB drive. Her eyes glowed with a strange mix of anger and satisfaction. "I did it," she said. Mira looked at her, confused. "What is that?" Alia sat down on the couch, plugging the USB into her laptop. "Proof," she said simply. "I wanted to be sure before I did anything. So I went to the hotel again. The same one. I watched. I recorded." The screen lit up, and Mira saw the unthinkable, her husband and her sister, sitting together in a restaurant near the hotel, laughing, holding hands, acting like lovers. Alia had filmed everything from a distance. The camera shook a little from her trembling hands, but the faces were clear. Mira's heart twisted in pain, but she couldn't look away. It was no longer just a rumor or a suspicion. It was real, undeniable. When the video ended, Mira buried her face in her hands. "Oh God," she whispered, her voice breaking. "Why are they doing this to me?" Alia's eyes filled with tears, but her voice stayed strong. "Because they thought we would stay quiet, Mom. Because they thought we would suffer in silence. But not this time." She turned the laptop toward her mother. "We're going to use this. But we'll do it smartly." Mira looked up slowly, afraid but curious. "What do you mean?" Alia leaned closer. "We'll let him destroy himself. I'll send this video to his office anonymously. To his friends. To the people he cares about. He'll lose everything he built with his lies. I'll make sure he feels the same shame we felt." Mira gasped softly. "Alia, no. That's too much. He's still your father." But Alia's eyes didn't soften. "A father doesn't do this to his family, Mom. He stopped being my father the day he chose her over us." Mira didn't argue. She didn't have the strength to. Inside, she felt torn between anger and fear, love and hate. She didn't want revenge, but she also couldn't deny the part of her that wanted justice. That night, while Mira sat silently by the window, Alia stayed up late, staring at her computer screen. The glow of the monitor reflected on her face as she drafted a message. Her hands shook, but her mind was clear. She knew exactly what she was doing. When the clock struck midnight, she clicked send. The next morning was calm, too calm. The sun was out, the birds were singing, but inside that small house, tension sat like smoke in the air. Mira tried to keep herself busy in the kitchen, pretending nothing was wrong. But her stomach twisted with worry. By noon, Rohan's calls started again. One after another. Mira didn't answer. She didn't have to. She knew something had happened. By evening, he came home. His face was pale, his hair messy, his shirt wrinkled. He looked like a man who had seen his world collapse. "Mira," he shouted as he entered the house. "What did you do?" Mira looked at him blankly. "I didn't do anything," she said calmly. He turned to Alia, his voice full of anger and fear. "Was it you? You sent that video? My whole office knows, Alia. They're talking about me. My boss called me today. I lost everything because of you." Alia stood up slowly, meeting his furious eyes with a calm expression. No, Dad, she said. You lost everything because of yourself. He stepped closer, his hands shaking with rage. How dare you? Mira quickly stood between them. Stop, Rohan, she cried. Don't touch her. Rohan stopped, breathing heavily, his face red with shame and anger. You've ruined my life, he hissed. Mira's voice trembled as she said, You ruined it the moment you betrayed us. For a few seconds, silence filled the room, the kind of silence that feels heavier than any scream. Then Rohan turned away, running his hands through his hair. You'll regret this, he muttered before storming out of the house. The door slammed shut behind him, and the sound echoed through the house like thunder. Mira fell back onto the couch, her heart pounding. Alia stood still, her hands clenched tightly. Mom, she whispered after a moment, it's not over yet. Mira looked at her in confusion. What do you mean? Alia's voice was calm but chilling. He's angry now. He's not the type to accept defeat. He'll try something. But don't worry. I'm ready for him. Mira stared at her daughter, her sweet, quiet Alia, and realized she didn't recognize her anymore. There was something new in her eyes. Something dangerous. Outside, the evening sky turned dark, and thunder rumbled once again in the distance. And as the first drops of rain hit the window, Mira felt it, this storm was far from over. The rain poured heavily that night, washing over the quiet streets and beating against the windows like the anger inside Mira's heart. She sat in her room, staring at the flickering shadows on the wall, unable to find rest. The sound of thunder felt like a warning, a reminder that peace would not come easily. Down the hallway, Alia was sitting near her laptop again, her face lit up by the soft blue glow of the screen. Her eyes were tired, but they burned with determination. She had no regrets for what she had done. Her father had destroyed their family, and now he was only feeling what he deserved. But Mira's heart was not as strong as her daughter's. She couldn't stop worrying. She knew Rohan too well. He was a proud man, a man who couldn't bear shame. Now that everyone at his office had seen the truth, she knew he would not accept it quietly. He'll come back, she whispered to herself. He won't stay silent. The clock ticked slowly through the night. Outside, the rain softened into a quiet drizzle, and the house grew still again. Around midnight, Mira heard a noise, a soft thud near the main gate. She froze, her breath caught in her throat. Slowly, she stood up and walked to the window. Through the glass, she could barely make out a shadow near the gate. It moved quickly, like someone trying not to be seen. Her heart began to race. Alia, she called softly. Alia came running from her room. What happened, Mom? Someone's outside, Mira whispered. They both peered through the curtain. The rain made it hard to see clearly, but then a flash of lightning lit up the sky, and for a moment, they saw him. Rohan. He was standing near the gate, soaked in rain, his face hidden in darkness. His presence sent a shiver down Mira's spine. Alia clenched her fists tightly, her eyes filled with anger. Don't open the door, Mira said quickly. But before she could stop her, Alia stepped forward. He has no right to come here, she said firmly. Rohan started shouting from outside. Open the door, Mira. I need to talk. His voice was hoarse, full of anger and desperation. Mira hesitated, but Alia walked up to the door and yelled back, There's nothing left to say. Go back to your sister. Oh wait, I forgot, she's our aunt. Rohan banged on the door. Alia. Don't talk to me like that. I'm still your father. Her voice trembled with rage as she replied, A father doesn't destroy his own family. There was silence for a few seconds, except for the sound of rain. Then Rohan's voice came again, softer this time. Please, Mira, let me explain. I know I made a mistake, but I can't live like this. Everyone knows now. I've lost my job, my respect, everything. Please, I just need a chance to fix it. Mira's heart twisted painfully. She looked at the door, her hand almost reaching for the handle, but then she stopped. She remembered the tears, the betrayal, the sleepless nights. There was nothing left to fix. Go away, Rohan, she said quietly. You made your choice. Rohan stood outside for a long moment, breathing heavily, before finally walking away into the rain. Mira closed the door tightly and leaned against it, tears filling her eyes. Alia walked up to her mother and wrapped her arms around her. You did the right thing, Mom, she said softly. But even as she spoke, a strange uneasiness settled in her chest. The next morning, they woke to find the gate wide open. Mira frowned. She was sure she had locked it the night before. On the ground near the front door lay a small envelope. There was no name on it. Alia picked it up carefully and opened it. Inside was a single piece of paper with 4 words written in bold black ink. You will regret this. Mira's heart skipped a beat. Alia's hands shook as she read the words aloud. Mom, it's him. For a moment, neither of them spoke. The room felt colder, the air heavier. Mira sat down slowly, trying to steady her breathing. He's angry, she said softly. And when Rohan is angry, he does dangerous things. Alia tried to stay calm. He's just trying to scare us. But she didn't truly believe her own words. Days passed after that message, and though Rohan didn't show up again, his presence lingered in every shadow. Mira couldn't sleep properly, she would wake up at every small sound. Alia, on the other hand, started acting more cautious. She made sure the doors were locked every night, the windows closed, and she even installed a small security camera near the entrance. But one evening, while Alia was reviewing the footage from the camera, she froze. Mom, she called out in a trembling voice. Mira rushed over. What happened? On the screen, they could see a figure standing outside their gate from the night before. It was Rohan. He wasn't trying to break in this time. He was just standing there, looking at the house for hours. Watching. Mira covered her mouth in shock. Why is he doing this? Alia's voice was filled with anger. Because he wants us to be scared. He wants us to break. But we won't. That night, Alia sat awake near the window, her eyes fixed on the street outside. The moon was hidden behind clouds, and the air was thick with tension. Every time she thought she saw a shadow move, her heart jumped. But she didn't let fear win. Then, around 2 a.m., the phone rang. The sudden sound made both of them flinch. Mira hesitated before picking it up. Hello? At first, there was silence. Then a familiar voice whispered, You destroyed my life, Mira. Now watch as I destroy yours. The line went dead. Mira dropped the phone, her hands trembling. Alia picked it up, but the call had already ended. The number was private. Mom, she said, her voice low and tense. He's lost control. He's dangerous now. Mira nodded slowly, tears filling her eyes. I should have never let it go this far. The following days were full of fear. They changed their locks, stopped going out alone, and even avoided talking to neighbors. Mira was constantly looking over her shoulder, afraid that Rohan might appear again. Alia tried to stay strong for her mother, but even she couldn't shake the feeling that they were being watched. One afternoon, Alia came home from her college looking pale. Mom, someone was following me, she said, her voice trembling. Mira's heart sank. Are you sure? Alia nodded. A black car. I saw it in my rearview mirror the whole way back. And when I turned into our street, it drove past slowly, and I saw him inside. Mira held her daughter tightly, her heart beating fast. We have to go to the police, she said. But Alia shook her head. No. If we go to the police, he'll get even angrier. I know how he thinks. He'll see it as a challenge. For the first time, Mira realized how much her daughter had changed. She wasn't the scared little girl anymore. She was standing tall, her jaw set, her eyes filled with quiet fury. That night, Alia decided to set up one more camera, this time, facing the backyard. If he tries to come near the house again, we'll have proof, she said. Mira agreed, though her heart ached with worry. The next morning, Alia checked the footage. Most of it showed nothing but darkness and rain. But just before dawn, a faint movement appeared on the screen. A man's shadow, moving slowly near the back fence. Then, the sound of a stone hitting glass. Mira's eyes widened. That's our kitchen window. They ran to the kitchen and found a small crack in the corner of the window, as if someone had thrown something at it. On the ground outside, under the fence, was a photo, their family photo. Torn in half. Mira picked it up with shaking hands. The part with her and Alia was still there. The part with Rohan was missing. Mom, Alia whispered, he's not going to stop. Mira's eyes filled with tears as she whispered, what have we done? Alia turned to her mother, her face pale but strong. We didn't do anything wrong. He chose this path. But now, we have to finish it. Her voice was quiet, but it carried a dangerous calm. Mira looked at her daughter, her heart torn between fear and pride. Finish it? She asked softly. What are you going to do? Alia didn't answer immediately. She looked out the window, her reflection faint in the glass, the storm clouds gathering again outside. When she finally spoke, her voice was cold and certain. I'm going to end this once and for all. The thunder rumbled again, shaking the windows. Mira's breath caught in her throat. She didn't know what Alia meant, but something in her daughter's eyes told her that the next step would change everything. The house felt smaller now, as if the rooms themselves had been made into corners of a tired heart. Mira woke before dawn, the pale light slipping through the curtains, and lay still while the house breathed around her. She could hear the faint tick of the clock, the distant hum of a car far down the street, and the slow, steady breathing of Alia in the next room. There was a new silence in their home, not peaceful, but waiting. Mira watched the ceiling until the sky lightened and tried to push away the fear that had settled in her chest. But the fear never left. Instead, it turned into a sharp, careful watchfulness, like someone walking on broken glass. Alia had not slept much either. The last few nights she spent planning, thinking, preparing. Her face looked pale, but there was a calm in her movement that was almost frightening. She moved through the house with purpose, checking locks, adjusting the cameras, and writing notes in a small black notebook she kept hidden inside a kitchen drawer. Mira watched her from time to time, seeing a daughter she no longer fully recognized. The girl who once laughed at silly cartoons now studied people the way a chess player studies a board. Each move had meaning, each silence had a plan. That morning, Alia told her mother she would go out for a while. She kissed Mira's forehead quickly and said, "Don't worry, Mom. I'll be careful." The words did not comfort Mira. Instead, they tightened something in her chest. Alia left with a bag slung over her shoulder and a face that looked like stone. Mira watched the door close and sat alone in the living room, the house suddenly too loud with empty echoes. Alia walked to the market in a quiet, steady way. People passed her without noticing the storm behind her eyes. She went into a small shop and bought a cheap-looking perfume bottle, a box of foreign chocolates, and a roll of clear tape. Then she went to a flower stall and asked for a big bouquet of white lilies, her hands steady as she picked them. The shopkeeper smiled and wrapped the flowers in brown paper. He had no idea why Alia's smile had a cold edge to it. She returned home and placed the flowers gently on the dining table, then opened her bag and took out the perfume bottle. It had a sweet, strong smell. Alia dabbed a little behind the collar of an old shirt of Rohan's she had taken from the laundry. The perfume still smelled like a stranger. The small things were important to her, the details would be the tools of her plan. For days, Alia worked in silence. She created moments that looked like accidents to anyone who did not know her mind. She left small, anonymous notes at places Rohan might visit, a note under the windshield wiper of his car that read, "Think about what you lost," and a typed message left near his office gate that would be noticed by the cleaning staff. She found a way to get hold of old messages of his, harmless at first glance, but with small edits that made his words look worse when taken out of context. She sent them to a few of his colleagues, carefully choosing people who loved gossip and feared scandal. Mira still could not believe that her gentle girl was doing all this. When she asked Alia some nights why she had chosen such cruel steps, Alia would only say, "He needs to feel the cold." The phrase made Mira shiver. But she also saw that the plan was working in small ways. Rohan's phone calls had turned frantic at times, but he stopped visiting neighbors and stopped coming near the house. He had become a shadow of a man, more careful in the daytime and angry in his solitude. The more Rohan withdrew, the more dangerous he became. He started trying to contact Priya, pleading, promising to leave everything if she came back, desperate attempts to fix the ruin he had caused. Priya, for her part, sent messages to Mira that tasted like apology and fear. Mira read them with a hollow stomach, not sure whether to trust the words of the woman who had betrayed her. Still, Alia watched everything with cold eyes, taking notes on every change, every small weakness. One afternoon, while cleaning the porch, Mira found a small envelope tucked under the mat. It contained a single receipt from a restaurant where Rohan often lunched with clients. The date on the receipt was last week, but the name on the server's note was not his, it was Priya's. Inside the envelope was a coarse drawing of a heart, badly sketched in black. Mira pressed the paper to her lips and felt as if the air had turned thin. The message was childish, but the meaning was cruel and clear. They wanted her to feel small. Alia used that anger and turned it into a plan that was not loud but surgical. She did not want people to see her as an angry daughter, she wanted them to see Rohan as a liar, someone who pretended to be a family man and who, when stripped of his image, would stand exposed and ashamed. She began to visit the places Rohan frequented, the expensive cafe, the gym, the club where men discuss business deals over smoke and loud laughter. She wore plain clothes and kept to the shadows. She listened to conversations, learning names and habits. She even struck up a quiet friendship with a woman from Rohan's past who had reason to dislike him. The woman's anger was a tool, and she lent Alia her voice at the right time. At night, Alia set small traps. Nothing violent, she did not believe in violence. Instead, she relied on the gentle, cruel power of shame and exposure. She dropped little hints into conversations, sent messages from anonymous accounts, and let rumors spread like slow poison. The people who once admired Rohan now cast curious glances his way and whispered in corners. Phone calls came in that his business was in trouble, some true, some false. Small debts surfaced, clients hesitated, and rumors spread that the man who had once stood tall was beginning to stumble. Mira watched these changes with mixed feelings. She thought of the years she had given to the family, the nights she had sat up sewing and the mornings she had packed lunches, the voices she had quieted to make room for others. She had wanted to be the kind of woman who forgave, who fixed broken things. But the pieces of her were scattered, and now she watched her daughter gather them with a cold purpose. One evening, Rohan came to the house unannounced. He looked different, older, his beard rough, his eyes hollow. He stood at the gate for a long time before knocking. Mira opened the door slowly, her heart beating like a small animal trapped in a jar. He did not come inside. Instead, he leaned on the gate, his voice low and broken. "Mira," he said, "I am losing everything. People are calling me a liar. My business is shaking. Please, help me. Tell me what to do." His words were not the proud voice she had known, they sounded small, pitiful. Alia watched from the window and then came to the door. She did not speak to him with anger. Instead, she looked at him with a quiet, steady gaze. "You made your bed," she said. "You chose this." Rohan fell silent for a moment. The rain began to fall softly, and the drops hit his shoulders like small, cold needles. He lifted his head and broke, "I never meant for it to go this far. Please, Mira. For the sake of the life we had. Mira's hands tightened around the doorframe. The memories of small joys and shared sorrows rose up: birthdays, cheap dinners, small jokes that had once built a home. For a second she felt his old hand on her shoulder. Then she thought of Priya's smile the night she avoided her calls, of his lies and laughter shared with another woman. She felt the betrayal like a cut that would not stop bleeding. Alia stepped forward. Her voice was quiet and cold. "You betrayed us both," she said. "You used our home like it was yours alone. You used our trust." She reached into her bag and took out a single photograph printed on cheap paper. It was a picture of Rohan and Priya, laughing together at a restaurant, their heads close. She handed it to him. "Do you remember this?" she asked. Rohan looked at the photo, then at Alia, and then at Mira. For a moment he seemed to be a child again, unsure of what to do. He clutched the photograph like a talisman and then suddenly dropped it on the floor. His face lost all color. He stumbled back, leaning on the gate, and his voice became a whisper. "What do you want from me?" Alia looked him in the eyes. "We want our life back," she said simply. "We want you to feel what you made us feel." Rohan's laugh was a strangled thing. He turned away from them, his shoulders shaking. "You think you can break me? You think you can take everything?" He walked a few steps, then stopped, then looked back. For a moment his eyes were wild. "You will regret this," he said again, but this time it did not sound like a threat. It sounded like a broken promise to himself. That night, Mira could not sleep. She lay awake and listened to the rain. She thought of the photo on the floor, the laughter of two people who were not meant to be together, and the way her daughter's hands trembled with a plan she would not share. Fear and a strange pride twined together in her chest. Alia had taken control, and Mira did not know if she could stop what was coming next. Outside, a far-off sound rolled through the darkness, the slow, heavy rumble of a car starting, then driving away. Inside, the clock kept ticking, and the house held its breath. The following days moved slowly, like thick fog that refused to lift. Mira woke every morning with a weight in her chest, unsure whether it was guilt or fear. The air in the house felt different now, tense and cold, as though even the walls were holding secrets. She had begun to notice small changes in Alia's behavior too. The girl who once smiled while making tea now stirred the cup in silence, her eyes distant and calculating. Mira wanted to stop her, to ask her to leave it all behind, but she could see that Alia was far too deep in her plan to turn back now. "I still remember that night," Mira whispered to herself, the night when everything had truly changed, the night Alia had seen her father's betrayal with her own eyes. That moment had planted something inside her daughter, something dark and burning. Now, weeks later, it was finally beginning to bloom. Alia had grown quieter but sharper. She no longer spoke of revenge, she simply acted. She collected evidence, printed messages, photographs, and documents, anything that tied Rohan to the woman who had torn their family apart. Mira didn't know what Alia was planning to do with them, but she feared the worst. Every time she saw her daughter's determined face, she felt a strange mix of pain and admiration. One rainy evening, as the wind howled outside, Alia sat in the dim light of her room, surrounded by papers spread across the floor. The desk lamp cast a narrow yellow glow that made the room feel smaller. Mira entered quietly, holding 2 cups of tea. "You've been up all night again," she said softly. Alia didn't look up. "It's almost over, Mom. Just a few more things to put in place." Mira set the cups down and sighed. "You've done enough, Beta. Let it go before it hurts you too." But Alia finally looked up, her eyes fierce. "He hurt us, Mom. He made you cry every night. He destroyed everything. You think I can just forgive him and move on?" Mira's lips trembled, but she didn't argue. She simply sat beside her daughter and looked at the papers. One of them was a printed email, Rohan's message to Priya, full of false promises and desperate words. Another was a list of business contacts, and next to some names, Alia had drawn small crosses in red ink. "What are you going to do?" Mira asked in a whisper. Alia didn't answer. Instead, she picked up her phone and typed a message quickly. Mira caught only a few words: meeting. Tonight. Don't tell anyone. That evening, when darkness fell and thunder rolled across the city, Alia put on a black raincoat and left the house without another word. Mira stood by the window, watching her disappear into the storm. The raindrops hit the glass like small fists. Something deep inside Mira told her that this night would change everything. Alia walked through the wet streets, her hood pulled low over her face. She reached a small cafe on the edge of town, the same cafe where Rohan and Priya had once met. The place looked almost deserted, its lights flickering softly through the rain. She stepped inside, dripping water on the tiled floor, and scanned the room. At a corner table sat Rohan, his face tired and pale. He looked up as Alia approached. "You asked to meet me," he said quietly. His voice was weak, almost pleading. Alia sat down opposite him, folding her arms. "I wanted to see if you remember what you did to us." Rohan sighed and rubbed his forehead. "Alia, please. I made mistakes. But you don't understand how lonely I was. Your mother." "Stop," Alia cut him off sharply. "Don't you dare blame her. She gave you everything." The waiter came by, but Alia waved him away. The cafe was almost empty now, except for one couple sitting near the window. Outside, the rain grew heavier, blurring the world beyond the glass. Rohan leaned closer. "I'm losing everything, Alia. My company, my friends. People are turning against me. I don't know how it happened, but it feels like someone's destroying me piece by piece." Alia stared at him for a long time, her expression unreadable. Then she said softly, "Maybe that's karma." Rohan's eyes widened. "It's you, isn't it? You're the one doing this." Alia didn't answer. She simply took out a small flash drive and placed it on the table. "Everything you did, every lie, every message, it's all in here. I could destroy you completely with this." Rohan's hand trembled as he reached for it, but Alia pulled it back. "I won't use it," she said slowly. "Not yet. I want you to feel it first. The fear. The shame. The helplessness." Rohan's voice cracked. "Please, Alia. I'm still your father." Her jaw tightened. "You stopped being my father the day you betrayed Mom." There was a long silence between them, filled only by the sound of rain against glass. Then Alia stood up. "You deserve every bit of what's coming," she said, and turned to leave. But before she could reach the door, Rohan called out, his voice trembling. "You don't understand what you've started." Alia stopped but didn't turn around. "No," she said coldly, "you don't understand what you ended." She walked out into the rain, her footsteps splashing through puddles, her heart pounding but steady. She felt no joy, only a hollow satisfaction, the kind that comes after taking the first step toward something irreversible. Back at home, Mira sat by the window, waiting. Hours passed. When Alia finally returned, drenched and silent, Mira ran to her. "What happened?" Alia didn't answer. She went straight to her room, closed the door, and locked it. Mira stood outside, listening. Inside, she could hear the soft sound of sobbing, quiet but real. That night, Mira couldn't sleep. She dreamed of Rohan's broken face, of Alia's hard eyes, of Priya's silence. She wondered if revenge ever truly healed anything, or if it only deepened the wounds that were already there. The next morning, as the sun struggled through the gray clouds, Mira noticed something strange. A small envelope had been slipped under the front door. She bent down and picked it up, her hands shaking. Inside was a single note written in Rohan's handwriting. It read, "You've taken everything from me. But the truth isn't what you think. Meet me tomorrow, alone." Mira's breath caught in her throat. Her hands trembled as she read the words again. She looked toward Alia's room, where the door remained closed, and a chill ran through her. Something told her this wasn't over, not yet. The morning light crept slowly into the house, golden and soft, but it brought no warmth. Mira sat at the kitchen table, the note from Rohan still lying in front of her. The words on the page seemed to burn into her mind, "Meet me tomorrow, alone." She read it over and over again, trying to understand what it meant. Why had he written that? What truth was he talking about? After everything he had done, what more could there possibly be to say? Her fingers shook as she folded the letter and slipped it into the pocket of her shawl. The air inside the house felt heavy, thick with tension. Every sound, the kettle boiling, the tick of the clock, the distant barking of a dog, seemed louder than usual. Mira could barely breathe. When Alia woke up and came into the kitchen, her face looked tired and swollen from crying. She poured herself a cup of tea and sat across from her mother. "You didn't sleep," Alia said quietly. Mira looked at her but didn't answer right away. She didn't want to tell her about the note, not yet. She wasn't sure if she could trust what Rohan had written, and she feared that Alia might do something reckless if she found out. "I'm fine," Mira said softly. "Just thinking." Alia stared at her mother for a moment, then nodded slowly. "He's trying to talk to you again, isn't he?" Mira's hands froze around her cup. "What makes you think that?" "Because that's what guilty men do," Alia said coldly. "When they can't control the story anymore, they try to twist it. Don't listen to him, Mom. He's a liar. Everything he says will be another trap." Mira forced a small smile and nodded, but her heart was uneasy. She didn't want to lie to her daughter, but she also couldn't shake the feeling that there was something Rohan desperately wanted to tell her, something she needed to hear before it was too late. The whole day passed in silence. Mira pretended to clean, though her hands barely moved. Her mind kept replaying the last time she had seen Rohan at the gate, broken, desperate, and hollow. Could it be possible that there was still something she didn't know? That night, when Alia went to sleep, Mira quietly put on her shawl and stepped out into the cold air. The streets were empty, washed pale by the moonlight. The note in her pocket felt heavy. She had agreed to meet Rohan in the park near the old bridge, a place they used to visit when life was simpler, before betrayal and tears had turned love into poison. When she arrived, she saw him standing near the bench, waiting. His shoulders were hunched, his clothes damp from the evening mist. For a moment, Mira almost turned back, but something inside her told her to stay. "Mira," Rohan said softly when he saw her. "You came." She stood a few feet away from him, keeping her distance. "What do you want, Rohan? Why did you write that note?" Rohan took a deep breath and looked around, as if afraid someone might be listening. "You need to know the truth," he said quietly. "It's not what you think." Mira frowned. "What truth?" "I saw you. Alia saw you. There's nothing left to explain." Rohan shook his head, his voice trembling. "It's not what it looked like. Priya, she trapped me, Mira. She blackmailed me." Mira's breath caught in her throat. "Blackmailed? Don't lie to me, Rohan." "Not again." "I swear," he said desperately. "She took pictures, messages, twisted everything. She threatened to tell people I was abusing her, that I was violent. I didn't even know how to stop her. I went along with it, thinking I could fix it before it got worse." Mira's head spun. She wanted to believe him, but after everything, how could she? "Why didn't you come to me?" He looked down. "Because I was ashamed. I thought you'd never believe me. And when Alia found out, I saw the hate in her eyes. I knew I'd already lost everything." Mira's hands trembled. The memory of Priya's cold smile, her strange confidence, her sudden disappearance, it all started to make a dark kind of sense. But part of her still couldn't accept it. You're just trying to save yourself, she whispered. Rohan stepped closer, his eyes glistening in the dim light. No, Mira. I'm trying to save you. You and Alia are in danger. Her heart jumped. Danger? What are you talking about? Rohan looked around again, lowering his voice. Priya isn't gone. She's been watching us. She sent me messages, saying she'll destroy you too. She knows what Alia's been doing, the fake accounts, the rumors, the lies. She's planning to use it against her. She wants revenge. Mira's body went cold. The wind blew through the trees, making the branches creak like whispers. You're lying, she said weakly. He shook his head. No. I have proof. He reached into his coat and pulled out his phone, showing her a series of messages. They were from an unknown number, but the tone and words were unmistakably Priya's. Each message was filled with venom. You think you can humiliate me? Wait till I destroy your daughter. Mira's lips parted in shock. Oh my God. Rohan's voice softened. I didn't come to fight you. I came to warn you. She's not done yet, Mira. Please, protect Alia. Don't let her do something that can't be undone. For a moment, neither of them spoke. The night felt endless, and the sound of the river nearby echoed softly, like a quiet cry. Mira wanted to scream, to demand answers from the world, but all she could do was whisper, Why now, Rohan? Why tell me this now? Because I have nothing left to lose, he said, his voice breaking. But she's already started something terrible. She's angry, Mira. She wants blood for her humiliation. You have to stop Alia before it's too late. Mira's heart pounded as she stepped back. If this is true, then we need to go to the police. Rohan nodded slowly. I tried. But she's smart, she hides behind fake names and people who owe her favors. You have no idea what she's capable of. The fear in his eyes was real. Mira could feel it. For the first time, she wasn't sure who the real villain was anymore. The lines between right and wrong had blurred until everything looked gray. A sudden rustling noise came from behind the trees. Mira turned quickly, her pulse racing. Did you hear that? Rohan nodded, his eyes darting around. Someone's here. The shadows shifted, and for a second, Mira thought she saw a silhouette, slim, still, watching. But when she blinked, it was gone. Let's get out of here, she whispered. They hurried toward the road, their footsteps crunching on the gravel. Mira's mind was spinning, Priya's threat, Alia's secret revenge, Rohan's broken warning, all tangled together in a web of fear. When she finally reached home, Alia was sitting on the couch, waiting. Her eyes were sharp. Where did you go, Mom? Mira froze at the door. The rain dripped from her shawl onto the floor. She opened her mouth to speak but couldn't find the words. Alia stood up slowly. You went to see him, didn't you? Mira didn't answer. Her silence was enough. Alia's voice cracked as she whispered, He fooled you again, didn't he? Mira shook her head, her voice trembling. No, Alia. This time, it's different. There's something we don't know. And I think Priya is behind it all. Alia's expression hardened. Then I'll find her, she said coldly. And I'll end this once and for all. Mira felt the blood drain from her face. No, Alia. Don't do anything foolish. But Alia was already walking away, her steps quick and certain. As the door closed behind her, Mira whispered to herself, Oh God, what have we started? Outside, the night wind carried the faint sound of footsteps fading into the distance. Somewhere out there, the final act of their story had already begun. The night sky was dark and restless, heavy with clouds that moved like slow shadows across the moon. The streets were almost empty, and a cold wind brushed through the alleyways, carrying the faint scent of rain. Alia walked quickly, her phone clutched tightly in her hand. Her mother's words echoed in her head, "Don't do anything foolish." But it was too late. The fire that had been burning inside her for months could not be put out anymore. She had one goal now, to find Priya. Meera had fallen asleep on the couch after hours of pacing and praying. The letter from Rohan still lay open on the table beside her, the ink slightly smudged by her tears. She didn't know where her daughter had gone, but her heart told her it was somewhere dangerous. The silence of the house pressed against her like a weight. Every tick of the clock felt like a warning she couldn't understand. Meanwhile, Alia took a cab to the other side of the city, an area she had only seen once, long ago, when Priya used to live there. The building was old, its paint faded and walls covered with the stains of time. She climbed the stairs slowly, her heartbeat loud in her ears. At the top, she saw the door, slightly open, as if waiting for her. Alia hesitated for a moment, then pushed it open. The apartment smelled faintly of perfume and cigarette smoke. The lights were dim, and soft music played from somewhere inside. On the table lay an unfinished glass of wine and a few scattered photographs, photos of Rohan, of Meera, and even one of Alia herself. Her stomach turned. Someone had been watching them. Then a voice came from the shadows. "I was wondering when you'd come." Alia froze. Priya stepped out from behind the curtain, dressed in a long black dress, her hair loose around her shoulders. Her smile was calm, almost mocking. "You've grown up," she said quietly. "I thought you'd come sooner." Alia clenched her fists. "You ruined our family." Priya tilted her head slightly. "Did I? Or did your father do that all by himself?" "Don't you dare talk about him," Alia snapped. "You blackmailed him. You lied to him. And now you're trying to hurt my mother." Priya laughed softly. "Hurt your mother?" "Oh, sweetheart, she hurt herself. Do you think she was innocent in all this? She knew what was happening long before you did. She just pretended not to see it." Alia's eyes widened. "You're lying." "Am I?" Priya stepped closer, her eyes gleaming. "Ask her. She used to call me when she thought your father was cheating. She wanted to test him. She asked me to flirt with him, to see if he'd fall for it." Alia felt her knees weaken. "That's not true," she whispered. "Oh, but it is," Priya said softly. "At first, it was just a game. But he was lonely. And I was angry. I wanted to hurt someone, anyone. So yes, I went too far. But don't act like your family were saints. Your mother built her world on control and guilt. And your father, he was too weak to fight back." Alia's breath came fast and shallow. The walls felt as if they were closing in around her. "You're just trying to confuse me," she said. "You're trying to make me hate them." Priya sighed and walked toward the table. She picked up a small photo, one of Meera smiling with Rohan, taken years ago, and held it out. "You see this? You think you know what love looks like. But behind every smile, there's a lie. I didn't destroy your family, Alia. I only showed you what it really was." Alia snatched the photo and threw it to the ground. "You're sick," she said through gritted teeth. "You think you can twist everything and walk away like nothing happened?" Priya looked at her for a long moment, then said softly, "You've already done more damage than I ever could." Alia froze. "What do you mean?" Priya smiled. "You think your little revenge plan was clever? You think people didn't find out where those messages came from? I know everything you did, Alia. And now, the police will too." Alia's heart stopped. "You wouldn't dare." "Oh, I already did," Priya said, picking up her phone and waving it. "I sent everything to your father earlier tonight, the fake accounts, the edited photos, the rumors you spread. He'll show it to the police by morning." For a moment, Alia couldn't speak. Her throat felt dry, her eyes stung with tears. "Why?" she whispered. "Why are you doing this?" Priya's expression softened slightly, but her eyes stayed cold. "Because you humiliated me. You made me a villain in everyone's eyes. You think revenge belongs only to you? No, dear. It belongs to everyone who's been hurt." Alia's anger exploded. "You don't know what pain is," she shouted. "You don't know what it's like to see your mother cry every night because of what you did." Priya stepped closer, her voice low and sharp. "And you don't know what it's like to be used and thrown away like trash." For a long moment, they stood face to face, two broken hearts bound by hate. The rain outside grew louder, hammering against the windows like a warning. Then, in one quick motion, Alia reached for Priya's phone. They struggled, their hands colliding, the phone slipping between them. It fell to the floor and shattered. The sound echoed through the small apartment. Priya stumbled back, breathing hard. "You shouldn't have done that," she hissed. Alia's chest rose and fell rapidly. "I'm not afraid of you anymore." Priya's lips curved into a cold smile. "You will be." Alia turned and ran. She didn't look back. Her hands were shaking as she pushed open the door and dashed down the stairs, the echo of Priya's laughter chasing her like a shadow. Outside, the rain poured harder, soaking her clothes and hair. She could barely see through the blur of tears and water. She didn't stop until she reached the main road and found a taxi. Her phone buzzed in her pocket, an unknown number calling again and again. She ignored it. When she finally reached home, Mira rushed to her. "Alia! Where were you? I was so scared." Alia could barely speak. "She knows everything," she whispered. "She's going to the police." Mira's eyes widened. "What? What are you talking about?" "She has proof, Mom. She knows about the fake messages, the rumors, everything." Mira grabbed her daughter's hands. "Listen to me. It's not too late. We can still fix this. We'll go to the police ourselves and tell them everything. We'll explain that you were only trying to protect your family." But Alia shook her head, tears streaming down her face. "No, Mom. You don't understand. She said you were part of it. That you knew from the start." Mira froze. Her lips parted, but no words came out. Alia looked into her mother's eyes. "Is it true?" she whispered. For a moment, Mira said nothing. Then she lowered her gaze. "I didn't think it would go this far," she said softly. "I only wanted to test him, to know if he still loved me. I never thought he'd." Her voice broke. Alia stepped back slowly, her face pale. You started all this?" Tears rolled down Mira's cheeks. "I was scared, Beta. I was losing him. I didn't know what else to do." Alia felt her whole world crumble. The betrayal cut deeper than anything before, not from her father this time, but from her mother. She couldn't speak, couldn't breathe. Outside, thunder roared across the sky. The lights flickered, and the room fell into darkness. Mira reached out, but Alia stepped back. "Don't," she whispered. "Just don't." And then, in the silence that followed, a sharp knock echoed at the door. Both women froze. The knock came again, harder this time. Mira's voice trembled. Who could it be at this hour?" Alia didn't answer. She walked slowly to the window and looked out. A car was parked outside, black, engine running. And standing near the gate was Rohan. His face was half lit by the headlights, rain dripping from his hair. He was looking straight at the house. Something about his expression made Alia's stomach twist with dread. Mira whispered, "He's here." Alia turned to her mother, her eyes wide with fear. And I think he knows everything. End of part 7, to be continued. You said 8. ChatGPT said, Part 8, the day everything broke. The sound of thunder rolled again as Mira and Alia stood frozen in the dark living room. The only light came from the faint glow of the street lamp outside, casting long shadows across their frightened faces. The rain continued to fall in heavy sheets, hitting the windows like angry fists. Another knock echoed through the silence, this time louder, sharper, more impatient. Mira's voice trembled. Alia, don't open it. But Alia didn't move. Her heart was pounding so hard it felt like it might burst through her chest. She looked toward the door, and then at her mother. If we don't face him now, she said softly, we'll keep running forever. Before Mira could stop her, Alia walked slowly to the door. Her hands were shaking as she reached for the handle. The metal felt cold under her fingers. She took a deep breath, and with one quick motion, she pulled the door open. Rohan stood there, drenched in rain, his shirt clinging to his body. His eyes were dark, tired, and full of something between anger and pain. For a long moment, he didn't speak. He just looked at them, first at Mira, then at Alia. Finally, he stepped inside without waiting for permission. Water dripped from his clothes onto the floor. The air between them was thick with silence. Mira tried to speak, but her voice cracked. Rohan. He raised his hand to stop her. Don't, he said quietly. His voice was low, steady, but cold. I've heard enough lies for a lifetime. Alia swallowed hard. Dad, please. Don't call me that, he interrupted. His tone was sharp, but his eyes softened for a brief second when he looked at her. Not after what you did. Alia's chest tightened. You don't understand. I was just trying to protect Mom. Rohan gave a bitter smile. By destroying my reputation? By sending fake messages, spreading rumors, and turning everyone against me? Tears filled Alia's eyes. I didn't mean to. You didn't mean to, he snapped. Do you have any idea what you've done? I lost my job, my friends won't talk to me, and Priya, she's gone. Mira's voice trembled. What do you mean, gone? Rohan turned toward her slowly. She left the city this morning. She told me everything before she did. Every message, every rumor, all of it came from Alia. But that's not what hurt me most. His eyes darkened. It was knowing that you started it. Mira's lips parted, but no sound came out. Rohan stepped closer. You told your sister to test me, didn't you? You asked her to see if I'd fall. And when I did, you blamed me for everything. Tears streamed down Mira's face. I was scared, Rohan. I thought you didn't love me anymore. He looked at her for a long moment, his face full of disappointment. Love doesn't survive on fear, he said quietly. You broke something that can't be fixed. Alia took a small step forward. Please, Dad, we can still fix this. We can go to the police. We can tell them I was just angry. That I didn't think. Rohan cut her off with a heavy sigh. You think this is about the police? No, Alia. This is about trust. About how easily you both turned against me. The rain outside grew louder. Lightning flashed, lighting up the room for a moment, enough to show the pain in all their faces. Rohan turned toward the door. I'm leaving, he said quietly. I don't want revenge. I just want peace. But I'll never forgive what you both did. Mira stepped forward, crying. Rohan, please. He shook his head. Goodbye, Mira. And just like that, he was gone. The sound of the door closing echoed through the house like the final crack of thunder. For a long time, neither Mira nor Alia moved. The silence felt heavy, crushing. The only sound was the rain and their quiet sobs. Alia sank to the floor, holding her head in her hands. "I ruined everything," she whispered. Mira knelt beside her, wrapping her arms around her daughter. "No, Beta. We both did." They stayed like that for a long time, two broken souls clinging to each other as the storm outside began to fade. Hours later, when the rain finally stopped, Mira stood up and walked to the window. The street was quiet now, washed clean by the storm. She took a deep breath. "We can't change what's happened," she said softly. "But we can start over." Alia looked up at her. "How? After everything we've done?" Mira turned to her daughter, tears still glistening in her eyes. "By telling the truth. By facing what we did, not hiding from it. Your father may never come back, but we can still learn to forgive ourselves." The next morning, Mira and Alia went to the police station together. They confessed everything, the fake messages, the lies, the revenge. It wasn't easy, and it didn't erase their mistakes, but it gave them something they hadn't had in months: peace. Time passed slowly after that. Mira focused on rebuilding her life. Alia started therapy and began to study again. The pain didn't disappear, but it became easier to carry. Sometimes, they'd look at the old family photo still hanging on the wall, Rohan smiling between them, and wonder if he ever thought about them too. Months later, on a quiet morning, Mira received a letter. It was from Rohan. It was short, just a few lines. "I hope you both are doing better. I've moved to another city. I'm trying to heal. Maybe one day we'll find peace again, in our own ways. Take care of each other." Mira read the letter aloud, her voice trembling but calm. Alia smiled faintly through her tears. It wasn't forgiveness, not yet, but it was a start. That night, as they sat together watching the sunset, Alia whispered, "Mom, do you think he'll ever come back?" Mira looked at the fading light outside and said softly, "Sometimes people don't come back, Beta. But their lessons do." The sky turned golden, and for the first time in a long while, the house felt warm again. They had lost so much: love, trust, innocence, but they had also found something new: strength, truth, and the courage to begin again. And maybe, just maybe, that was enough. If you felt this story in your heart, please like, subscribe, and share your thoughts in the comments. Remember, lies destroy, but truth heals. And sometimes, the hardest revenge is learning to forgive.